That's next Sunday. This is object lessons. So, I'm so grateful for you. And I want you to know that no matter who you are, no matter where you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. So, none of what I'm about to say is in my notes. Christ with me, Christ before me, Christ behind me, Christ in me, Christ beneath me, Christ above me, Christ on my right, Christ on my left, Christ when I lie down, Christ when I sit down, Christ when I arise, Christ in the hearts of all who see me, Christ in the mouth of all who speak to me, Christ in the eye of all who see me, Christ in the ear of all who hear me. That is attributed to St. Patrick. And, Christian Wyman was the man who taught me that there's a value in learning something by heart. There's a phrase, by heart. We memorize and learn something by heart, put it in your heart. And the reason I want to begin that way is because the title of today's talk is Disturbed by Joy, an Evolutionary Perspective on Prayer. And I just wanted to acknowledge that in many, many, many churches, you can't use the word evolution. But sometimes I will remind you, among other things, in addition to being reminded about your true identity, being who you are in God, no more, no less, being reminded that we are all connected and we have an obligation to live with loving kindness, compassion, and generosity, that one of my hopes is that these talks disturb you with joy. I, of course, want you to be glad that you came here, but also kind of disturbed, shaken up, maybe thinking in a different way than you had thought before you came. I want to honor Albert Einstein's dictum. Albert Einstein died in 1955. That's not that long ago. And he said that no problem can be solved with the same consciousness that created it. So our primary purpose, because all of you who are here, and anyone who can hear this later or read this later, we all move beyond basic survival needs. Our primary purpose is to grow, to experience what I'm calling psycho-spiritual transformation. Now, this, by the way, is not a place to get to. This is a process that we involve ourselves in on an ongoing basis. Problems cannot be solved with the same level of consciousness that created them. So sometimes we have to open our eyes to new levels. And I'd like to contribute to that today, how we normally see things. I am a great fan of the Persian poet Hafiz, and I quote him in here from time to time. And all this week, there has been a poem of his that's been going on in the background of my mind. And that poem is, pulling out the chair beneath your mind and watching you fall upon God, what else is there for Hafiz to do that is any fun in the world? By the way, he died somewhere around 1390, and you get some of his poems, and I think you will like what you read with him. Anyway, in that regard of shaking you up a little bit, I have some exciting news, a news article to share with you that has come to me from one of the most valuable journals that I receive each month. And the headline in one of the journal articles was, "Scientists discovered the speed of prayer." Now, I'm going to read it to you. This is cutting edge stuff. In one of the greatest mysteries of the cosmos, how fast is prayer? A group of scientists working in conjunction with the clergy claims to have calculated the exact velocity of prayer. It is a complicated and baffling process, explained prayerologist Desmond Wilkins. When you press your hands together, close your eyes, and wish really hard for something, the prayer gets sent to a series of relay stations near the Arctic Circle. These prayer towers then boost the signal and beam it into space, where it takes about 8 hours at sublight speed to reach the local prayer dispatch number 42, just beyond the orbit of Saturn, and that's on a good day. But not everyone's prayers are being answered. I wanted a white BMW with tinted windows and custom rims, and I prayed really hard for it, complained lawyer Ned Hobbs, and nothing happened. What's the deal? Here's the deal, said astrotheologist Reginald Dumpson. At local dispatch number 42, billions of prayers are bundled together daily and faxed to Central Prayer Processing, that's CPP, in the Horsehead Nebula about 54 light years away. Once received, a committee of dwarves must read each prayer and file them based on priority and good spelling. After a tedious weeding out process, the chosen prayers are sent up to the Lord God Almighty. Every third Tuesday of every other month, he picks 5 of his favorite prayers and answers them. It's kind of like a holy lottery. "So where's my pony?" said impatient 7-year-old Tabitha McQueen. "I prayed for it over a month ago." Due to the laws of physics, nothing can travel faster than light speed, but in certain cases, prayers have been detected traveling across the galaxy almost instantly. However, this is only available with the Express Prayer Deluxe package, which is $8,599.99 a month, which expedites your prayer and puts yours at or near the front of the line. And then there is the Divine Platinum Prayer Package, which is just $93,750 a month. And this includes all you can pray with, unlimited instant answers to your deepest and shallowest wishes. "I prayed for a yacht, a purple one," said billionaire televangelist Slick Withers. "And next morning, there it was, right alongside my other yachts. Praise Jesus." But for most people, the average speed of prayer is a meager 47 miles per hour. That's the equivalent to heavy traffic on a rainy day. "That's the speed of prayer," said God from his gated mansion near the center of the universe. "And don't pray for faster answers to your prayers," he said. "That's against the rules." That is an article in its entirety from a man, humor writer named Chris Hume, and it appeared in a journal that is so valuable to me called Funny Times. And some of you know that, some of you take that. And I'm going to show it to you along with the cartoons that appeared in it and some others that are favorites of mine about prayers. Do you ever get the feeling that our God just isn't listening? Oh, what should I do? I was answering a prayer and accidentally clicked reply all. Enough said. I can't deal with famines, massacres, and epidemics right now. I got to help this guy stick a foul shot. I'm sorry to have inconvenienced you, Walton. I just usually thought when I said God, I would get, Jehovah. God finds all the prayers of mankind in his spam folder. Couple more. Sorry to disturb you, sir, but the telemarketers are praying now. This happens every time God sits down to dinner. The UPS person is saying, didn't you send a guy a sign last week? Apparently he didn't get it. He's asking for another sign. So, from God to Rick, which is another sign. You know, prayer in some form, however you understand it, has gone back to the beginning of human evolution. I brought with me today, to show you, somebody brought me this. This is a Buddhist prayer wheel. And written on a piece of paper thousands of times in really tiny print is the Buddhist chant Om Mani Padme Hum, which you can't translate into English. It's not translatable, but it does refer to the qualities that Buddhism stresses: with generosity, kindness, patience, diligence, renunciation, and wisdom. These things come in all sizes. There is a Buddhist temple that I have not visited, but I have a picture of. I've seen it in a documentary, where there is a big square outside up on the temple, and there are prayer wheels all around, huge ones, filled with these written prayers. And monks will walk around them and take their hands and twirl them, because it's believed that the spinning of the prayer wheel puts the prayers out into the cosmos. When I was in seminary and served churches there as part of my work, and I look back on it and I think, you know, I spoke on Sundays to farmers and ranchers, some of whom could not read, and shared with them my latest learnings about what a word meant in the Greek past tense. And they actually were kind enough to act like it mattered and that they understood. When I visited in homes of these people, there were two things that I could guarantee you I would find in some form in everybody's home. The first was some depiction of the Albert Duer's praying hands. They would either have them cast in glass or whatever it was in, or they'd have it framed. And there was also on almost everybody's wall Heinrich Hoffmann's picture of Jesus praying in the garden. Now, one of the things that we can say with some confidence is that the historic Jesus prayed. The record is full of that. He prayed by example. He did most of his teaching by example. He prayed out loud where his disciples or those around him could hear him. And there is a profound emphasis on prayer in all of the monotheistic religions. And in the Eastern religions, where I'm saying Buddhism particularly, which is an atheistic religion, meaning there is not a God to come and rescue, there is still all this emphasis on rituals and statues and mantras, and of course Hinduism that has hundreds of gods. Native Americans who pray to the directions of the earth and to the great spirits in the sky. Animists in tribal regions of the world who pray to ancestors. Prayer is just permeated organized religion from the beginning. But no matter how sophisticated we think we are when it comes to prayer, I'll bet that when you think about prayer, if you do, and I don't think most people do most of the time, we revert to thinking of praying in the way that those cartoons reflect. That there is a separate God out there somewhere, usually a white male, who is listening to our prayers. I think just the idea that I opened today with a prayer and said that this class is going to be about prayer made some of you wonder if you should have been here today. And I want you to try to be here. Spiritual practice is showing up to what is, even if we don't like it. And sometimes, indeed more often than not, in the most unlikely places, when we least expect it, we find or are found by something that turns out to be an insight or information that helps us in our lives or in our relationships, make them more nearly what we would have them to be. So stay tuned. My hope is that we all end up, when we're done here today, with more peace, more joy, more compassion, more love. And to the degree that we're able to do that, this world will be a better place. You know that we live in a world that is consumed and distracted by a desire for increasing validation through technology and social media. The statistics about this, especially for our younger generation, is staggering. Just this morning, I read a statistic that young people between the ages of 20 and 40 are working fewer hours than 20 years ago because they would rather make less money so that they can have more time to spend gaming on their devices. So we allow technology to create the illusion that we are connected when in fact it creates isolation. I love this cartoon. Cell blindness. Everybody's looking at their cell phone. And this one, I feel lonely and isolated from people. It struck me this week that cell is a great name for it. It's like being in a cell, in a jail cell, isolated. So I'm bringing this matter of prayer up today because the teaching from the Gospel of Thomas we're up to. I'm going to read it to you a couple times and then we'll come back and talk about it in view of the new physics. So they said to him, they being the students that are referred to over and over in the Gospel of Thomas, "Come, then let us fast and pray." And he said to them, "Have I sinned? Have I been overcome? No, only when the bridegroom leaves the chamber will it be time to fast and pray." Fasting and praying have long been regarded in all religions from the beginning of recorded history as an important aspect of the religion in question, prayer. One of the things that we observed on the St. Nicholas pilgrimage was going down into the crypt where many of the remains of St. Nicholas of Bari, Turkey, are. From Mara, Turkey, they're in Bari now. The rest of them are in Venice. And we went down into the crypt, and one of the things that I saw that moved me was this small boy kneeling at the gate of the crypt, praying to the relics of St. Nicholas. And then later, in the same crypt over in the corner, was this Greek Orthodox priest who was reading from a prayer book, which he has right here. And as I walked over closer, and I have a picture of this also, his prayer book is his iPhone. His prayer book is on his iPhone. Now there are parallels to this teaching in the Christian collection. In Mark, the religious leaders criticized Jesus roundly for the fact that his disciples and he do not fast. They do not keep the religious rituals that they are supposed to keep. And though we could spend a lot of time talking about this, The image of the bridegroom, the bridal shower, is all through Jewish and Christian scripture as a time of union and celebration. And Jesus' teaching here is about the fact that he had come to give people joy, not burdens, not to make things tough and unpleasant. I don't know whether this is still true or not. Some of you who may be Catholic, Roman Catholic or other, may could inform me, but isn't it the case that if you were Catholic and you went to confession, as a consequence of that confession, you were told, go say so many Hail Marys, so many Our Fathers, so in that kind of context, prayer was a punishment, right? I don't think Jesus saw it that way. As I said, there are many, many, many directions we could go with this teaching from Thomas. And one would be, of course, to underscore the emphasis that Jesus put on joy. His whole purpose was to bring enlargement to everything. And if you want to follow Jesus, one of the things you can do is to ask about what you're involved in. Does this enlarge me or diminish me? You can ask that about what you do in the world. Does this enlarge me? What this teaching also offers us an opportunity to get into is a more direct, clear understanding of what is meant by prayer. And to whom do we direct our prayers? When I first got introduced to the notion of non-duality, it was from a Buddhist teacher back in the 60s. And Buddhism certainly focused on ritual, certainly focused on practice. As I said, Buddhism is atheistic. There's no God in Buddhism who's going to come and rescue us at the last minute. And then I started listening to people who knew about Christian mysticism. I had not been taught this in seminary. This was not part of Christian education, certainly not been part of the curriculum of most education programs in Christian churches. But I started listening to Jim Finley, and I started listening to Cynthia Bourgeault, and I started listening to Richard Rohr. And I heard Richard Rohr say one time that Jesus was the first non-dual teacher in the West. Now, the understanding most of us grew up with made a dualist out of Jesus because that's the culture that we had inherited since the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment put science and religion at odds. They were fighters. The Enlightenment made it easy for anyone who wanted to dismiss religious teachings as childish and naive. But with new understandings of physics and the cosmos, I can understand, how would anyone believe in a sky god and a man who's up there somewhere, out there, looking at us? I think it was Bishop Shelby Spong who said, when referring to the story of the ascension of Jesus, you all are familiar with that, Jesus experiences resurrection, he hangs out with his disciples and other people for 40 days, and then he goes up on this mountain and he ascends into heaven. You know the story, right? Shelby Spong said that if Jesus traveled at the speed of light and left the earth 2,000 years ago, he would still be inside our galaxy. And we have learned so much more about the cosmos. Where is this God of Jesus that Jesus had such an intimate contact with? I remember back in the 60s when Thomas Althusser and others tried to bring these insights into the mainstream curriculum of Christian education. And man, they were soundly drummed out. I mean, just really drummed out. Althusser is the guy who came up with the phrase, God is dead. J.B. Phillips came up with a book called Your God is Too Small, and that did better than God is Dead. What Althusser meant was the God that you always thought was God doesn't exist anymore. But that didn't float. So faith, for many people, became a rugged holding on to that old-time religion, you know, back when God was really God. Get back to the good old times. So there was little room for discerning the actual evidence that was available to anyone who would just open their eyes. I'm talking about evidence now. A true believer became someone who could find evidence in the Bible for what they had been taught by their tradition to be true. Actually, what was happening for many is that Scripture and doctrine made personal experience unnecessary, so that the mystics were marginalized and mysticism was made to sound spooky. So as my own exposure to and experience of non-dual mind grew, I began to understand all of this in a different way. And I came to understand that the mystic's way of seeing and knowing was not incompatible with our growing understanding of the cosmos. I want to read to you something. The basic reality of God is plain enough. Open your eyes and there it is. By taking a long, thoughtful look at what God has created, people have always been able to see what their eyes as such can't see. Eternal power, for instance, and the mystery of God's divine being. So, did Neil deGrasse Tyson write that? Tyson write that? Ilia Delio write that? No. That's the Apostle Paul. That's in the letter to the Romans. Also, Rohr says that Paul is a misunderstood mystic. I have had this growing sense that the search for truth, the search for authentic love, and the search for God, they're all the same search. And there's so many people who defend their religious positions who are on no search, do no mental work, have no open heart, but they are authorities on who's going to heaven and who's going to hell when they die. We're living in a scientific revolution. And often a religious organization or a person is forced by the evidence to consider changing its position, say on some matter like evolution or sexual orientation. As the Methodist Church right now on its global framework is doing, there's some group that's taken a hiatus, and they say they are trying to discern what God's position is on sexual orientation and full inclusion in the Methodist Church. Now, I'm a cynic when it comes to this. I believe that when people say they are religious organizations and people say we're going to enter into a period of discernment, what they mean is that their minds are already made up. But they're going to wait a while before announcing that, and then they're going to blame God. So, when it comes to understanding prayer, let's do so with the fearless openness to everything that science has to tell us. There is more mysticism and mystical truth in quantum physics than there is in most religious fundamentalism. I'm going to quote Einstein again. Einstein said, "Science without religion is lame, and religion without science is blind." When Carl Jung was asked, and this appears several places in the writings and reportings about Carl Jung, one of this happened and is on film right here in Houston, Texas. Jung was asked if he believed in God, and he had this pipe that he was smoking, and he said, no. I know God. When we are working at getting in that position, we're praying. Prayer is not asking some Santa Claus-like figure in the sky to hop to it and do our bidding. Spiritual work is about shifting away from what is dominant in our culture. And what's dominant in our culture is human-centric, ethnocentric, and a short-sighted view of what is important. At the heart of psycho-spiritual transformation, there are two basic essential orientations. And they are, first, what is real? And second, what is important? What is real? And what is important? And the more that more and more people around the world move in the direction of honoring these questions, the less our inherited religious traditions will divide us. These are not confined to any one religious point of view. We face challenges on this globe today and the need to find tools to deal with them that could not have been known by any religious sage or poet of the past. Not Moses, not Jesus, not Muhammad, not Buddha, no one. And worse, I believe that we trivialize, if not blaspheme, their teachings if we freeze their insights into the pages of Scripture. That is an ultimate form of idolatry. I grew up in a tradition that poked fun at the Roman Catholics because they gave ultimate authority to the Pope. But the Southern Baptist Church in which I grew had a paper pope. It was the Bible. Jesus, of course, knew nothing of the understandings that we are just coming to grasp about our cosmos. But he did know and experience that the God who gave him his identity was not out there. The God of Jesus was an ultimate experience, and he nourished that and was nurtured by that through what I am calling prayer. The world in which Jesus lived was one single reality. What our scientists are telling us is that this is true. We live in one long, sweeping, spectacular process of interconnected events. What I got from Ilia Delio is this. The cosmos is not a place where evolution happens. It is evolution happening. We are not watching a drama unfold. We are part of an unfolding drama. And what this drama tells us, and I think we ignore this at our peril, is that we are all brothers and sisters made from and returning to the same stellar dust. We have the same genetic codes, and we are all threatened by the same evils. There's a man named Loyal Rue who has written a book called Everybody's Story, Wising Up to the Epic of Evolution. I'll read him a paragraph. This story, more than any other, humbles us before the magnitude and complexity of creation. Like no other story, it bewilders us with the improbability of our existence, astonishes us with the interdependence of all things, and makes us feel grateful for the lives we have. And not the least of all, it inspires us to express our gratitude to the past by accepting a solemn and collective responsibility for the future. These scientists are writing like theologians, and they're writing very spiritual stuff. He says in one of his books, the most profound insight in the history of humankind is that we should learn to live in accordance with reality. I quoted this last week. Indeed, living in harmony with reality may be accepted as a formal definition of wisdom. Connect the dots. The heart and essence of spiritual practice is being with what is, and developing the resources to be with what is in a non-judgmental manner. He goes on to say, if we live at odds with reality, foolishly, we will be doomed. But if we live in proper relationship with reality, that is, wisely, we shall be saved. Humans everywhere and at all times have had at least a tacit understanding of this fundamental principle. I'm saying that whatever we do to nourish our relationship with reality, whatever we do to be nourished by our relationship with reality, is prayer. Part of the great turning that we are experiencing is that reality is more authoritative than the dictates of an all-male ecclesiastical body or a literal reading of Scripture. Prayer is the mystical but practical practice where we do what is required to become and stay clear of who we truly are and to know. And I can't tell you the force with which this first hit me when I first heard Jim Finley say it. Prayer is what we do to stay clear that though I am not you, I am not other than you either. And though I am not God, I am not other than God either. Prayer is what we do to stay clear about this and to find ways to live this in the world. Now, I think most of you would agree, maybe not all of you, but most of you would agree with the cosmological understandings that we're coming to just begin to understand today. I believe you would agree with that. However, and I don't mean this judgmentally, my hunch is that when it comes to prayer or to praying, we can easily revert to a belief in a God out there. That's why I think we have such a value to learn, have much of value to learn from the mystics, both Christian and Eastern religions, who have found value in things like icons and relics and rituals that they practice. God is not elsewhere. And the belief that God is out there is the primary reason people give up on the spiritual path that will eventually take us all to our death. Have a nice day. I can't imagine the Jesus that I have come to know over the last 25 or 30 years saying, well, I tried prayer, but it didn't work for me. Prayer is the awareness that we have of making a response to and having a relationship with the God who is ever present around us and within us. Now, that being the case, I am not trying to get you to pray. I'm trying to get you to be aware that you're praying all the time. And to maybe shift the degree of awareness that you have about that and the presence that you bring to it, the real you. Now, if you're one of the 2 or 3 people here, or maybe all of you, I don't know, who is saying under your breath, well, this is not very practical. I double dog dare you to try it. Try it. Take up a deliberate, specific practice for 90 days. And then report back what's been your experience. Don't make it an intellectual, oh, there it is out there, I can see it, and maybe someday try it. And pick it up, put it on. Try it. So I'll tell you a story about how to pray. There was a group of spiritual seekers who invited a master of meditation to the house of one of them to give all of them instruction for spiritual practice. And he told them that they must all strive to acquire freedom from strong reactions to the events of daily life. Don't be reactive, be proactive. They must have an attitude of habitual reverence and the regular practice of a method of meditation. I should have mentioned that to you. Anyway. And he went in great detail saying how they could do this. And by the way, if you read the Book of Joy in the back, there's a recipe book for doing this. So he said the object of this was to realize the divine presence pervading all things and all people. Sounds familiar? And the object of the meditation practice was to stay in an increased period of non-reactivity. He said, in the end, you must come to this realization not only in the meditation period, but in daily life. The whole process is like filling a kitchen strainer with water. And with this, he put his hands together and bowed and left. Well, the little group saw him off, and then one of them turned to the others with great frustration, even anger, and said, that's as good as telling us we'll never do it. We'll never make it. Filling a kitchen strainer with water, I ask you, really? That's what's happening now to me. I go hear a spiritual talk, I meditate, I pray, I read one of the books he's always recommended. Or I go and engage in some act of kindness and compassion or something like that, and I do feel uplifted. My character does improve for a bit. I don't get as impatient, I don't gossip as much, but it soon drops off. And I'm just like I was before. It is like water going through a strainer. I think he's right about that. But now he's telling us this is all we'll ever be able to do. So they pondered on the image of the kitchen strainer without getting any solution which satisfied them. Some thought that he was saying that people like themselves could expect only temporary improvement in their spiritual work. Some thought maybe he was just being playful with them, maybe even laughing at them. After all, they all had jobs and families to tend to. He, on the other hand, had the luxury of being a full-time practitioner of the spiritual arts. Some thought he was telling them that there was something fundamentally wrong with their ideas and ways of thinking. Others thought that he might be referring to something in the religious or spiritual classics which he expected them to know, so they searched thoroughly what resources they had for references to a kitchen strainer. They found nothing. And in the end, the whole thing dropped away, except for one woman who made her mind up to go see the master. So she went, and he gave her a strainer. And said, let's go down to the seashore. And they stood on the rock with waves breaking around them. And he said, show me how you feel the strainer. So she took the strainer and she took a cup. She dipped the cup in the ocean. And she poured the water into the strainer. And it went straight through. And he said, of course. When you stand on the rock of the ego and try to fill the strainer with water, it always does that. Here, give me the strainer. I'll show you how to do it. And so he took the strainer and he threw it out into the ocean. And it floated there on the surface for a bit. And then it sunk down. And he said, now it's full. It will remain so. That's the way to fill it with water. And that's the way to do spiritual practice. It's not taking little cupfuls of sacred mystery into yourself. It is rather throwing yourself far out into the sea of sacred mystery. I think that's where I'm going to leave this. Leave it right there in the face of sacred mystery. After all, life's complicated enough as it is. No matter where you go this week, no matter what happens, remember this: you carry precious cargoes, so watch your step, and I will see you here next week.